Dear young heroes, welcome back to our magical story time. Let's dive right into our epic tale where we left off last time. The night sky glowed red behind them as the Palace of Lac burned to ashes. But far away in the deep forest, the Pandavas and Kunti walked silently, step by step. Their hearts were pounding from the escape. Their feet were sore. Their bodies were covered with soot. But they were alive, and that was enough. They knew one thing clearly. They could not let the world know they had survived. If news reached Hastinapura, Duryodhana and Shakuni would try again, this time with something far worse than fire. So the Pandavas left behind everything they once knew: their palace, their comforts, their identity. Royal clothes were replaced with simple wraps of white and beige clothes. Gold ornaments were abandoned. Like shadows drifting between trees, they moved deeper into the forest, farther from danger and closer to destiny. The forest was vast and wild. Thorny bushes scratched their feet. The cries of wolves echoed at night. Sometimes the air smelled of fear, and sometimes of rain. But the Pandavas walked on. Bheem carried Kunti on his shoulders like a living mountain. Every step he took said, "Mother, you are safe with me." Arjuna hunted silently with his bow, bringing down birds, deer, and wild rabbits so that no one in the family slept hungry. Yudhishthira guided them with wisdom. "Brothers, anger will tire you, but patience will carry you forward." Nakul and Sahadev, though young, gathered fruits, collected herbs, and kept the fire burning at night. The days were hot, the nights were cold. Food was scarce, but love was not. The hardships of the forest wove the Pandavas together like threads of steel. Strong, unbreakable. To protect themselves from being recognized, the Pandavas disguised themselves as Brahmins. They walked barefoot into small villages, accepting alms, bowing respectfully, speaking little. Villagers saw them and thought, just holy wanderers seeking food and shelter. No one imagined that the boys standing humbly before them were princes of the mighty Kuru dynasty. Even in rags, the Pandavas carried themselves with the grace of royalty. One night, as they rested under tall forest trees, a new danger crept toward them. A Rakshasa named Hidimba smelled the scent of humans. His hunger awakened like fire. "Hidimbi," he growled to his sister, "go bring them to me. Tonight I shall feast." Obedient but curious, Hidimbi walked toward the humans. But when she saw Bheem, strong, tall, fearless, her heart changed. Not with hunger, but with love. She approached Bheem and whispered, "You are strong as a mountain. Leave this forest with me. I will protect you from my brother." Bheem refused, but his eyes softened with kindness. Before he could speak further, the forest shook. Hidimba charged in like a storm. The trees trembled, the earth cracked, birds flew from their nests in fear. Bheem stood tall like a lion. The battle began. The clash of their fight echoed like thunder. Bheem leapt, twisted, and struck with power that shook the entire forest. And then, with one mighty blow, Hidimba fell. The danger was gone. But Hidimbi, heartbroken yet brave, begged softly, "Bheem, I love you. Stay with me, if only for a short time." Kunti understood the purity in her eyes and said, "Bheem, this is destiny. Stay with her for some time." And from their union was born a child unlike any other, Gatotkacha. With large expressive eyes, a mischievous smile, and the strength of a young Titan, he was destined to be a hero in the great war of Kurukshetra. Bheem played with him, lifted him high in the air, and Gatotkacha laughed like thunder. But time came for Bheem to leave. Hidimbi hugged him tightly. tears shining in her eyes, while Gatotkacha watched with sadness. Bheem said, "I must go, but you and our son will forever be in my heart." With heavy hearts, the Pandavas continued their wandering life. They did not know where destiny would lead them. But destiny already knew. The flames of the palace were behind them, but the fire of destiny was just beginning to glow. In the hardest times, family unity becomes the greatest strength. Each trial we face is shaping us for a greater purpose. Even in disguise, truth and character shine brighter than jewels. All right, kids, time for me to rest now. Jai Shri Krishna. Welcome back, kids. Ready for the next story? Good. Let's begin. In the last episode, I spoke about the hardships of Pandavas in the forest. Far away from the forests where the Pandavas wandered, another kingdom was preparing for a moment that would change the world. The kingdom of Panchala. King Drupad walked through his grand palace halls with a sense of pride and purpose. For today, he was preparing for the Swayamvara of his daughter, Draupadi, also known as Krishna. Draupadi was not an ordinary princess. She had emerged from a sacred fire ritual, a yajna, created by destiny itself. Her beauty was breathtaking, skin glowing like morning gold, eyes shimmering like pure flame, and a grace that made the world pause. The Swayamvara hall was decorated with golden pillars, silk banners, flower garlands, and shining lamps. Princes from every corner of Bharat had arrived, kings, warriors, archers, and nobles. In the center of the arena stood a mighty bow, enormous, heavy, impossible for ordinary men. Above it, a wheel rotated constantly, with a tiny target, the eye of a golden fish carved at the top. Below it was a bowl of water, its ripples reflecting the spinning wheel above. The challenge was clear. Lift the bow, string it, and shoot the arrow at the fish's eye, but only by looking at its reflection in the water. A challenge of strength, a challenge of focus, a challenge of destiny. Among those who arrived were the Kauravas, proud and confident, Karn, shining like a sun, Duryodhana, flanked by his 99 brothers, proud and overconfident, and 5 quiet Brahmins, the Pandavas in disguise. One by one, princes attempted the challenge. Some tried to lift the bow and failed miserably. Some lifted it, only for it to slip and fall with a loud crash. Some strung it incorrectly, and the bow snapped back. The crowd laughed. Some gasped, some whispered. Duryodhana stepped forward. He struggled, he grunted, but he failed. More princes tried, each one returning to their seat defeated and embarrassed. Then Karna rose. Gasps filled the hall. His armor gleamed. His confidence shook the air. He lifted the bow with ease, as if it were made of flowers. Silence spread through the hall like a wave. But as Karna prepared to shoot, Draupadi stood up. Her voice rang clear. "I shall not marry the son of a charioteer." A hush fell, a few gasps, a sting of insult. Karna's face tightened. Without another word, he stepped away from the bow and left the arena. King Drupad was getting worried and restless. No prince could do the task at hand. Then, from among the Brahmins, a young man rose. His eyes were calm. His posture is steady. His movements are graceful. It was Arjuna, though no one knew. People whispered, "A Brahmin? How can he succeed where great warriors failed?" Arjuna bowed before the bow with respect. He took a breath and lifted it with surprising ease. The hall went silent. He strung it smoothly. He positioned himself before the bowl of water. He did not look at the fish, only at its reflection. His breath slowed. His mind sharpened. The arrow flew, straight, true, flawless. The fish's eye was hit. The hall erupted in thunderous applause. Drupada stood proud. Draupadi lowered her eyes shyly. Destiny had spoken. Draupadi had found her husband. But not everyone celebrated. Warriors jumped to their feet, shouting, "How can a Brahmin take Draupadi? This is unfair!" Weapons clashed. Princes charged forward. But Bheem roared like a lion, lifting his mace to block the attackers. Arjuna stood firm, protecting Draupadi with his bow drawn. Nakul and Sahadev guarded the rear. Yudhishthir kept everyone coordinated. Against all odds, the Pandavas fought off the angry princes and escaped with Draupadi before more chaos erupted. They returned to their humble hut, Draupadi walking shyly behind them. Excited, they called out, "Mother, look what we have brought today." Without turning around, without knowing what they meant, Kunti spoke her usual instruction. "Whatever it is, share it equally among yourselves." Her words were simple, innocent. But when she saw Draupadi standing there, she was shocked. "Oh no, I spoke without knowing." But Yudhishthira said gently, "Mother, your words are holy. We must honor them." Draupadi also understood. Destiny had spoken through Kunti's lips. Thus Draupadi became the wife of all 5 Pandavas, not out of confusion, but out of respect for their mother, unity among brothers, and the path destiny had written long ago. So, dear children, what did we learn today? Words have power. Always speak with care. Respect for parents protects the harmony of a family. Unity makes a family stronger than any challenge. Destiny can reveal itself in the most ordinary moments. This was the wonderful story of Draupadi, who was later also known as Panchali. Keep having fun, bacho. Jai Shri Krishna. Radhe Radhe. Hello kids, welcome back. Hope you are well. Let's start today's story, where I will also talk about Lord Krishna. The small hut where the Pandavas lived was filled with silence. Kunti stared at Draupadi, realizing what her words had caused. Her voice trembled. I did not know what you brought, my sons. I spoke without seeing." But in those ancient times, a mother's spoken words were sacred. The sages who were present said, "What is spoken with purity becomes destiny." Draupadi's heart was beating fast. This was not what she expected. She had come with Arjuna, and now she was destined to marry all 5 brothers. But Draupadi was no ordinary woman. With grace in her eyes and strength in her heart, she stepped forward and bowed. "I accept what destiny has written for me." As preparations for the wedding began, a chariot approached, decorated with peacock feathers and golden bells. Inside sat Krishna, the prince of Dwarka. The moment he stepped down, it felt as if the world glowed a little brighter. His smile carried warmth, his eyes carried wisdom, and his presence carried divinity. He embraced the Pandavas lovingly. He blessed Draupadi. "May your life be filled with strength, devotion, and purpose," he said gently. This was the moment the Pandavas found not just a friend, not just a guide, but a protector chosen by destiny itself. Far away in Hastinapura, news arrived. The Pandavas are alive. They have married Draupadi. They have returned stronger than before. Duryodhana's fury shook the palace. What? They survived? And now the greatest kings support them? His jealousy burned like fire. Shakuni whispered, "This is dangerous for us." But Bhishma and Vidura stood before King Dhritarashtra like pillars of truth. The Pandavas have a rightful claim. If you deny them their share, disaster will follow. Dhritarashtra, blind in sight and troubled in mind, knew they were right. To prevent war, King Dhritarashtra announced, "Let the kingdom be divided." The Kauravas would rule Hastinapura. The Pandavas would receive land. But what land? Indraprastha, a barren, dry stretch of wilderness filled with thorny bushes, wild animals, and poisonous snakes. Vidur informed the Pandavas about the decision. Bheem was upset, Arjuna felt disappointed, but Yudhishthira calmly reassured his brothers. The moment they stepped into Indraprastha, they realized how harsh their challenge truly was. The ground was cracked and dry, like an old clay pot left in the sun for too long. The wind carried dust instead of fragrance. Everywhere they looked, there were thorny bushes, endless, stubborn, and sharp. Tall, twisted trees stood like dark shadows with no leaves, their branches reaching out like claws. Yudhishthir spoke gently. "Brothers, greatness is not in what we receive. Greatness is in what we create." Krishna smiled at his words. "Land is only as barren as the heart of the person who sees it," Krishna said softly. "Where some see wasteland, others see possibilities." And with that, everything changed. The Pandavas began their work. Workers arrived from nearby villages, carpenters, potters, masons, gardeners, all inspired by the courage of the Pandavas. The sound of tools echoed through the air. Hammers tapped like rhythmic drums. Wooden carts rolled in, carrying stones, bricks, and timber. Bheem pulled out giant trees with his bare hands, the roots flying into the air. Arjuna used his arrows to shape the land, clearing paths by burning bushes and guiding water to flow in the right direction. Nakul calmed frightened animals and moved them to safer places. Sahadev worked with farmers, teaching them how to enrich the soil. Krishna walked among them, offering wisdom, laughter, and hope. Weeks passed, months passed. The barren land began to breathe again. Small streams appeared, then ponds, then gardens. Green leaves sprouted where only dust had lived. Flowers bloomed in colors no one had ever seen. Fruit trees swayed gently in the wind. And then came the palaces. Magnificent structures rose from the ground, marble floors glowing in the sunlight, golden pillars standing tall like hopeful dreams, crystal clear fountains dancing in the courtyards. Kunti was overjoyed to see the transformation. She helped Nakul and Sahadev plant saplings, flowers, and fruit trees. People gasped in amazement. "What magic is this? How did a desert become heaven?" The Pandavas had worked tirelessly under the guidance of Sri Krishna to make this happen. They looked proudly at the beautiful city they had built. They all thanked Sri Krishna, and he smiled and blessed them. Draupadi was filled with happiness. Indraprastha transformed into a jewel of a city. Indraprastha, a city so divine, even the gods looked down with admiration. The Pandavas finally had a kingdom worthy of their greatness. So kids, what do we learn from today's story? Even barren land can bloom when guided by courage, unity, and wisdom. Greatness is never given. It is built with hard work and hope. Keep working hard toward your goals and keep having fun. Jai Shri Krishna. Welcome back, young heroes. Today's story is one of victory, pride, magic, and a dangerous spark that would shape the future of the Mahabharata. Sit tight, because this journey will take you from the glittering throne of Indraprastha to the burning jealousy in Duryodhana's heart. Indraprastha was now shining like a jewel in the heart of Bharat. The streets were filled with music, markets buzzed with life, and people spoke with pride. Yudhishthira is the greatest king we have ever known. But Yudhishthira The calm, gentle, truthful king had a dream not of power, but of dharma, of righteousness. He wished to perform the Rajasuya Yagna, a sacred ceremony so grand that only an emperor could attempt it. Krishna visited Indraprastha at that time. Yudhishthira bowed to him and said, "Krishna, I wish to perform the Rajasuya. I want to unite Bharat in peace." Krishna smiled softly. "O Yudhishthira, your heart is pure. Rajasuya will give you not only fame and wealth, but also dharma, the power to protect your people." Those words encouraged Yudhishthira, and the preparations began. To perform the Rajasuya, every king had to accept Yudhishthira as emperor. So the four Pandava brothers set out in the four directions. Bhima, with his unmatched strength, went to the east. He challenged mighty kings in wrestling matches and defeated them with ease. Arjuna rode to the north. Through snowy mountains, deep forests, and river valleys, no warrior could stand against his arrows. Nakula journeyed west, charming kings with diplomacy and swordsmanship. Sahadeva marched south, where kings respected his wisdom and agreed to support Indraprastha peacefully. Soon, gold, silver, precious gems, elephants, horses, and rare gifts arrived at Indraprastha. Tribute after tribute filled the halls. The world now recognized Yudhishthira as a rightful emperor. Indraprastha shone like heaven on earth. Kings, sages, warriors, and nobles from across the land gathered. The Kauravas arrived too, Duryodhana, Shakuni, Karna, and along with them came wise Bhishma, Dronakarya, and Dhritarashtra. Huge pavilions were decorated with flowers. Sacred fires blazed bright. Drums echoed across the palace. The entire kingdom vibrated with celebration. One question still remained. Who deserves the first honor, the Agriya Puja? Bhishma rose from his seat. His voice was calm yet powerful. There is only one who deserves the highest honor, Krishna, the protector of dharma. The hall erupted with cheers. Krishna stepped forward with gentle humility. Garlands were placed around his neck. Drums sounded, conch shells blew. People bowed in respect. But not everyone was pleased. Shishupala, king of Chedi, stood up in fury. His eyes burned with jealousy. "How dare you honor Krishna first? He's just a cowherd, just a prince. I refuse to accept this insult," he shouted. He insulted Krishna once, twice, 10 times, 20 times. Krishna stayed calm. He had promised Shishupala's mother he would forgive 100 insults. The count rose, 60, 80, 90, 100. Then Shishupala continued, 101. Krishna closed his eyes. The time has come. Suddenly, he raised his Sudarshana chakra. The divine disc flashed through the hall like lightning. In a single moment, Shishupala fell. Silence filled the chamber. Everyone understood. Krishna does not punish out of anger. He punishes only to protect dharma. The Rajasuya ceremony ended with glory. Yudhishthira was now emperor of Bharat. After the ceremony, Duryodhana wandered through the magical palace created by the great architect Maya. This palace was unlike any ever seen. The floors looked like clear water, but were actually crystal. The ponds looked so real, yet were illusions. As Duryodhana walked, he suddenly stepped into a pool, thinking it was a solid floor. Splash! Draupadi laughed openly. Her words were sharp. "The blind man's son is blind indeed." It was a joke, but it hit Duryodhana's heart like a spear. His face burned with shame. His fists tightened. His eyes filled with hatred. He stormed out of the palace, trembling with anger. Back in Hastinapura, Duryodhana lay on his bed, angry, humiliated, unable to sleep. He refused food, refused water, refused to speak. He replayed the laughter again and again in his mind. How dare they laugh at me? How dare they humiliate the son of a king? I will destroy them. I will take everything they own. Shakuni entered the room, smiling darkly. Why use war, my dear nephew? War is risky, but there is something better. Shakuni finished. A game. A simple game of dice. And in that moment, a game was born that would tear apart families, kingdoms, and the future of Bharat, a game that would lead to exile, humiliation, and eventually war. Moral of the story: pride and jealousy can blind even the strongest. True greatness lies in humility, purity, and controlling one's ego. Jai Shri Krishna. Har Har Mahadev. Welcome back, my young heroes. Today we reach one of the most important and emotional chapters of the Mahabharata. A chapter that teaches us what happens when jealousy grows too big, and how courage and dignity shine even in the darkest times. After the Rajasuya Yagna, something dangerous grew inside Duryodhana. Not a fire outside, but a fire inside his heart. He could not stop remembering Draupadi's laughter, the people praising Yudhishthir. Every thought felt like a spark that made his anger hotter and hotter. He said to his uncle Shakuni, I cannot live peacefully while the Pandavas have everything. Their palace, their glory, their strength. I want it all. Shakuni smiled a slow, cunning smile. My dear nephew, we do not need war to defeat them. We just need a game. They both conspired and convinced King Dhritarashtra to invite Yudhishthir to Hastinapura to celebrate his success and play a game of dice. Kings calls Vidar to go as his messenger and invite them. Vidar gets worried to hear this and goes to meet Bheem, but he has to go. Vidar meets Yudhishthir and invite them. Yudhishthir said quietly, if the invitation comes from family, I must accept. Little did he know, this was the door to his greatest test. The hall was ready. Shakuni sat with the dice, and he was known to be a master, not because of luck, but because he played with trick dice that obeyed his will. The Pandavas took their seats. The Kauravas watched with hungry eyes. Yudhishthir said, we will play, but only fairly. Shakuni smiled. Of course. And the game began. But every time the dice rolled, Shakuni won. Not once, not twice, but again and again and again. The hall filled with whispers. What is happening? Yudhishthir never loses like this. But he kept playing, because in those days, a Kshatriya did not leave a challenge unfinished, and Shakuni knew that. Slowly, painfully, Yudhishthir lost. His gold, his jewels, his horses, his army, his kingdom, his brothers. 4 brave warriors, Bheem, Arjuna, Nakul, Sahadev, became lost in a cruel game. And then, Yudhishthir made one final mistake. In desperation, he said, I still have one more thing, Draupadi. The whole gasped. Draupadi, the pride of the Pandavas, was wagered in a moment of weakness. And Shakuni rolled the dice, and he won. Duryodhana laughed loudly. Bring Draupadi to the court. A servant went to her chambers. Draupadi was shocked. How can a husband who has lost himself in a game still have the right to wager his wife? This question echoed through the palace. Even wise men had no answer. She refused to come, but Duryodhana ordered again. Bring her here, by force, if needed. Draupadi was brought to the hall, trembling but proud. Her eyes sparkled with courage. Even in danger, she stood tall. She asked the elders, if Yudhishthir lost himself first, how could he wager me after that? No one could reply. The court fell silent. When Draupadi was insulted, When her dignity was threatened, the entire universe shook. She cried out to Krishna, "O Govinda, protect me!" And far away in Dwarka, Krishna heard her heart. With divine power, he protected her honor, covering her with endless cloth so no insult could touch her. This moment teaches us, whoever stands for truth, dharma, and pure in heart, God himself stands with them. Bheem roared, "I take a pledge today. I will not show my face to my elders unless I have killed Duryodhana and Dushasan." After the terrible event, even the elders realized that great injustice had been done. A new decision was made. The Pandavas must go to 13 years of exile, 12 years living in the forest, and 1 year living in disguise, unseen by anyone. If they were discovered in the final year, the 13 years would start all over again. It was the hardest punishment imaginable. The people of Indraprastha wept, but the Pandavas did not break, and so the 5 brothers and Draupadi left their palace, their kingdom, their comforts. The trees became their new walls, the sky became their roof, and their bond became their greatest strength. This exile would teach them about patience, strength, wisdom, and forgiveness, and it would prepare them for the greatest war the world would ever see. My dear children, what did we learn today? Jealousy destroys even the strongest. Wrong decisions made in anger can ruin lives. Truth and dignity always win in the end. Even in darkness, courage and unity light the path forward. Remember, the Pandavas did not become heroes because they never fell. They became heroes because they always stood up again. We'll meet again for the next story. Until then, Jai Shri Krishna.